Good morning, Internet. I am Froggle, and today I'm going to be talking about Transformers Devastation, a Transformers video game that I feel is somewhat underrated, even if it is already beloved by the Transformers community. Transformers Devastation is a 2015 beat-em-up heavily inspired by Season 2 of the G1 cartoon. It launched to mild success and somewhat positive reviews. It appeared that critics really liked the number 7, because it got a 7.7 out of 10 on IGN, and a 77% on Metacritic, and a 7 out of 10 on GameSpot. It was pretty well liked for its soundtrack and general fast gameplay, and very visually appealing art style. And Transformers fans, well, they really liked it. I feel like as time goes on, people have really forgotten about the game, however, which is interesting because to this day, people will not shut up about the War for Cybertron games on Xbox 360 that preceded Transformers Devastation. People are constantly wanting remakes, and recently, Transformers Studio Series has released some figures of main characters from that game with their War for Cybertron designs. To say that Devastation has been forgotten, however, people still constantly talk about the soundtrack, which is great and all, it's a big part of the game, but generally, I wish there was more discussion of Devastation in modern times. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk about Transformers Devastation, and I really love this game, but it's kind of easy to critique, and I feel like this video might come off as pretty negative towards the game, so just be aware of that. First things first, I want to talk about the story, because I really don't have that much to say on it. It's pretty solid, but it's nothing special. It only ever gets interesting really at the end, and it's a little emotional at the end, a little interesting. It gets me to think a little bit, but it's nothing to write home about, honestly, and you don't really need it to understand what's going on to enjoy the game. And then the art style, I also don't have that much to say about it. It's bright, and it's pleasant to look at, and it somewhat resembles G1, but only really the character designs is what makes it come off as G1. And the character designs, they're great. They are updated, but at a first glance, you think they're just direct with the G1 designs. And that's kind of nice. I like them. Now, I've been really positive so far, but that might change as I go into the gameplay. The gameplay, it's repetitive, but it's not as repetitive as it may seem at first glance. But yeah, it's kind of repetitive. You've got your light attack, you've got your heart attack, you can hold down on the heart attack button, you can chain the attacks together by just button mashing, you've got a dodge, the dodge can slow down time, the dodge is also a transformation button, which is also really interesting. You more or less have to transform to dodge, or you just really quickly tap it so you don't fully transform. And I think that's a really nice Transformers twist on some generic, beat-em-up gameplay, but it's still a lot of generic beat-em-up gameplay, man. A lot of the time when you're just fighting nameless hordes of enemies, it can get a little boring. And you really have to keep swapping characters and swapping weapons in order to keep the gameplay going. Speaking of characters and weapons, that's where most of the fun from the gameplay comes in here. Playable characters are Sideswipe, Wheeljack, Grimlock, Optimus Prime, and Bumblebee, and they have unique stats, but I don't really feel like that affects how differently they feel from one another. It's more so their unique abilities and specials. Now, this lack of variety between the characters is a bit of a detriment, but it also makes it kind of fun because I can just play as Wheeljack because I like Wheeljack. Now, the weaponry in this game is really neat. You have ranged and melee weapons. You have to equip one of each, but generally you can do 3 ranged, 1 melee, 3 ranged, all that kind of stuff, 2 ranged, 2 melee, whatever you want to do with the 4 slots you have. There's a lot of variety with the weapons, and there's a lot of reference material in there too, like the Dark Star Saber, which is a pre-order exclusive, but I think it's fun that that's in there. Bulkhead's Wrecking Ball from Prime, and of course weaponry that's used in the game, like Soundwave. You can just wield him in his G1 gun mode, Devastator's drills, Minosaur's sword, Starscream's no raid, whatever you want. It's pretty fun. I may have commented about how it's very boring when you're just fighting repetitive hordes of nameless Decepticon enemies. However, they mix it up pretty often with boss fights, and the boss fights in this game are pretty nice. So, generally, the gameplay is a mixed bag, but overall slightly positive. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the main complete problem of this game, and that's how short it is. It can be easily beaten in about 4 hours and 10 minutes, roughly. And, yeah, that kind of sucks. But that is mostly because there's a lot of optional missions during those first couple chapters. And if you go into the game knowing that a lot of it's optional, so you better make the most of what you have and go for those optional stuff and chill out during the early couple chapters, you can make the game last a lot longer. That's what I do with most of my playthroughs of the game. It also has a pretty extensive challenge mode, but that's just a lot more fighting hordes of enemies and fighting bosses you've already done, and yeah, that gets repetitive even if you can spend another hour or two clearing all of those and getting good ranks on that. And lastly, I want to talk about the replayability, which is good, because, a 4-hour game you kind of want to replay pretty often. So, I think the really short length is a detriment, but it's not as bad as people say it is. My overall thoughts on this game are very positive. I think it is way better than people say it is, and people already say it is pretty good. I just hope this game gets more love, and you can find it for about $20 or so on Xbox, but it's been delisted from digital stores, so might be a bit of a struggle to find a used copy, but it's not going to be priced that high, I don't think, at least compared to the War for Cybertron games. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like and subscribe and press other buttons that are below the video because those are useful to me. See ya.